An alien fleet appeared over Earth in the quiet hours of the morning. The ships were massive beyond anything humanity had ever seen. Their sleek forms glided through the atmosphere without a sound, their hulls gleaming with alien metals that reflected the dim light of the rising sun. Their presence was a statement in itself. They were here, and their intention was clear. They had come to conquer Earth. Humans looked up from their windows at the sky, confused and awestruck by the sight of the massive ships looming overhead. Most believed it was some kind of prank, or perhaps a new military exercise. No one could have imagined what was truly unfolding before them. No one could have predicted the fate that was about to descend upon the planet. The aliens had studied Earth for years from afar. Their technology had been far beyond anything Earth had developed. They knew every weakness of humanity, every vulnerability. And they knew the humans were still struggling with conflicts between their nations. They saw no threat in Earth's defenses. The few space stations the humans had constructed were barely functional, much less able to defend against such an overwhelming invasion force. The fleet began to descend with an eerie precision. As if choreographed, each ship in perfect formation, they aimed directly at the planet's major cities and military bases. Their scanners detected no significant defense capabilities. The alien commanders were confident this would be a swift operation. They were used to this. They had conquered countless worlds without resistance. No planet ever had a chance against them, and Earth would be no different. But what the aliens didn't know was that Earth had a secret hidden deep within its governments, a technology developed in the shadows, a weapon so powerful that it could turn the tide of the entire war. Before it even began, humanity had kept the Railgun program under wraps for years, knowing that such a weapon could be both a game-changer and a last resort. The weapon itself was crude by alien standards, but it was devastating in its potential. It utilized electromagnetic technology to launch projectiles at velocities never before seen. It could pierce the strongest shields and tear apart the toughest materials with ease. Yet the aliens had never encountered anything like it in their vast intelligence network. It was an unknown, a threat they had never considered. As the alien fleet continued its descent toward Earth, a message was broadcast across the skies, a single announcement to every living being on the planet. The invasion had begun. Humanity had no choice but to respond. They had been caught off guard, but now the time for waiting was over. It was time to unveil their secret weapon. In the hidden underground bunkers of Earth's most secretive military bases, the Railgun systems powered up. Their electromagnetic fields crackled to life. The first test would be a gamble. The humans had no idea how effective the Railguns would be against such advanced technology, but it was their only hope, and they were determined to try. The first shot was fired. It was slow at first, building in intensity. The massive projectile was launched from a silo and streaked toward the alien flagship. The aliens saw it too late. Their systems were slow to react as the projectile cut through the air, faster than the speed of sound. Their shields were no match. The Railgun had struck the flagship with a force that made even the seasoned commanders on board recoil in shock. The projectile tore through the ship's defenses as if they weren't even there, and the first alien ship was destroyed in a flash. The aliens were stunned. They had no idea what just happened. They had never encountered a weapon like this, and for the first time in their long history of conquests, they felt a sliver of doubt creep into their minds. The moment the alien flagship disintegrated in a fiery explosion, the atmosphere on Earth shifted from stunned silence to sheer chaos on every continent. Humanity had just landed its first blow against an overwhelming invader, and the world wasn't sure how to process it. Disbelief mixed with hope and panic flooded every news channel. The shock was universal. The aliens had never expected this. The humans had never expected this. The command centers around the globe scrambled into action as military leaders tried to comprehend what had just occurred. How had the Railgun weapon worked so effectively against a ship that was capable of wiping out entire cities? With a single blast, the projectile had torn through its shields, as though they were paper. How had the humans managed to develop such technology? In secret, the alien commanders quickly realized that this was not a simple weapon. This was something far more dangerous than they had ever anticipated. The Railgun system had been a decades-long project by a handful of Earth's most brilliant minds, a collaborative effort involving military scientists, engineers, and physicists working under the radar. Their task had been clear and singular: to develop a weapon that could protect Earth from a threat far greater than anything humanity had faced before. But even the brightest minds on Earth had never imagined the project would be put to the test this soon or under such terrifying circumstances. Across the planet, people were watching the broadcast as military leaders took to the airwaves delivering urgent messages to civilians, while simultaneously coordinating a defense strategy that could maximize the effectiveness of the railguns. The first strike had worked, but that was no guarantee that future attacks would be successful. The aliens were still many in number, and their technology still vastly outstripped humanity's. The war had only just begun. In the skies, the alien fleet was regrouping. Their commanders issued orders for a full retreat to space. They needed time to reassess their strategy and recalibrate their technology. The sudden destruction of their flagship had shaken their confidence, and they now knew they were dealing with a species far more resilient and resourceful than they had ever given credit for. As the alien ships ascended from Earth's atmosphere, a second wave of railgun fire was already being prepared. It wasn't enough to destroy one ship. The humans had to strike again and again to make their mark on the invaders' plans. The railguns fired relentlessly from multiple sites across the planet, each shot aimed precisely at different targets. With a speed and power the aliens could no longer ignore this time, the projectiles were faster and more accurate. Human engineers had studied the first strike and refined their targeting systems. In the distance, alien warships moved to engage their retreating forces, but they were already being hit by another volley before they could react. The second round of railgun projectiles tore into the approaching ships. Their shields crackled and splintered under the unrelenting force as alien fighters were shot down one after another, and the alien fleet's momentum began to falter. Despite their superior numbers and advanced technology, they couldn't match the speed and precision of humanity's new weapon. In every major city around the world, news outlets were broadcasting live footage of the battles unfolding in the sky. People watched in awe as the railguns struck the alien invaders with almost perfect accuracy and devastating force. Humanity had launched a full-scale defense against the invaders, and despite the alien shock, they were forced to admit that this war might not be as easy as they had once thought. On Earth, a sense of unity began to grow. People from all nations were beginning to realize that they were no longer separate in this battle. They were no longer divided by borders or differences. For the first time in human history, it was clear that survival meant coming together and fighting as one world against the uninvited visitors from the stars. The alien fleet's retreat was nothing short of chaotic. Their commanders scrambled to organize their forces. Even as their ships were under fire by humanity's railguns, each shot seemed to land with pinpoint accuracy. The aliens had never faced such precision before. Their advanced shields and countermeasures were designed to repel the most powerful weaponry in the galaxy, but against the high-velocity projectiles launched by the railguns, they were ineffective. It was clear now that the humans had something they had not anticipated. But what exactly was it? How had such a primitive species developed such a potent weapon? Inside the alien flagship, a room filled with military leaders and scientists buzzed with frantic discussions. Their sensors and computers were overwhelmed with data. They had never encountered a weapon that defied their understanding of physics. Their scans revealed that the projectiles were powered by electromagnetic forces capable of accelerating objects to speeds beyond their comprehension. The ship's shields failed to stop the incoming projectiles, and their weapons were unable to target the source fast enough to make a difference. The fleet's tactical officer sat still in disbelief, staring at the data on his screen. He spoke in a low voice, his words shaking. The rest of the room had never seen him like this before. These humans are using magnets. His voice was almost a whisper, as if saying it out loud might make it less real. But the more he studied the data, the more it became undeniable. This primitive species had somehow figured out how to create a weapon based on electromagnetic forces that could breach their most sophisticated defenses. Another officer, a commander from a different ship, turned sharply toward him. "Are you telling me that this is some kind of railgun? That this thing is their weapon?" He gestured toward the images of the Earth below, where explosions and flashes of light marked the destruction of another alien fighter. The very idea was laughable. How could a species that had barely begun to master space travel possibly develop a weapon that could pierce their shields, much less disable entire warships? "We're missing something," the tactical officer muttered. He ran more simulations trying to understand the physics behind the human weapon, but the data kept coming back with the same result. Nothing about it made sense. There was no indication that the humans had the necessary technology to create such powerful electromagnetic fields, nor the materials to withstand the forces they were generating. The officers could only conclude that the humans had somehow created a weapon that defied all logic. As the alien fleet regrouped in the void of space, far above Earth's atmosphere, the realization began to sink in. They were dealing with an enemy that didn't operate by the same rules as the other civilizations they had conquered before. This wasn't a species that could be intimidated into submission. This wasn't a race that would fall to fear or overwhelming numbers. They were fighting a species that would fight back with everything they had, even if it meant using every last ounce of creativity, ingenuity, and desperation they possessed. In Earth's defense command centers, the situation was far from secure. Despite the success of the first strikes, the battle was still unfolding, and humanity was under no illusions that the war was won. They were fully aware that the alien fleet was not going to retreat forever. The aliens would regroup and adapt. They had no choice but to be ready for whatever came next. Humanity's railguns had stunned the invaders, but this was just the beginning. The world's military leaders were cautiously optimistic, but they knew that they could not rely on this one weapon forever. They needed to learn everything they could about the aliens and their weaknesses. They needed to figure out how to keep the momentum going, how to exploit every advantage they had just gained, and most importantly, they needed to stay ahead of the invaders, who were quickly realizing they were facing something they never expected, a species that might not only survive but triumph against them. The alien fleet, now battered and confused, retreated to a safe distance, but they were far from defeated. Their commanders met in urgent council aboard the remaining ships, their faces grim as they assessed the damage. The humans had shocked them. The railguns were an enigma, an unpredictable, terrifying force that had disrupted their plans in ways they couldn't have anticipated. But the aliens were not known for retreating, and their pride would not allow them to simply abandon their mission. It was time to retaliate, to show the humans that their primitive weapons were no match for the might of a superior civilization. The first step in their counterattack was recalibration. The alien fleet's engineers worked around the clock, adjusting the shields, recalibrating the targeting systems, and running simulations to determine how they could defeat the humans' railguns. Their technology was vast and advanced, and it didn't take long for them to develop countermeasures. New drones, faster and more agile than the previous ones, were deployed to engage the humans directly. These drones would intercept the railgun projectiles before they could strike their ships, using advanced deflection fields and evasive maneuvers to neutralize the threat. Simultaneously, the alien commanders authorized the deployment of their heavy artillery, massive energy cannons capable of firing devastating blasts at Earth's surface. They would attack key human military installations, crippling the Earth's ability to continue fighting. The hope was simple: destroy the human command centers, disable their railgun arrays, and leave the rest of the planet vulnerable to the aliens' overwhelming might. As the drones began to swarm the battlefield, the humans were not idle. Earth's military had anticipated this move. The railgun systems, though limited, had been adapted to fire in quick bursts, targeting the incoming drones. It wasn't perfect. There were too many targets to focus on, but it was enough. One by one, the drones were taken down. Their advanced shields were no match for the concentrated electromagnetic energy of the railguns. The air was thick with explosions, bright flashes of light, and the sound of metal tearing through the void of space. But the aliens were relentless. In response to humanity's resistance, they launched their next wave. Massive capital ships, heavily shielded and armed with devastating energy weapons that could obliterate entire cities in a single strike. These ships entered Earth's atmosphere with terrifying speed, unleashing torrents of plasma and ionized energy onto the surface. The humans fought back with everything they had, but they were still outmatched. The railguns were effective against smaller targets, but against these enormous warships, the human weapons seemed to falter. Tensions were high across the globe. Governments coordinated their defense efforts, sending every available resource into the fight. Civilians scrambled for shelter, unsure of whether the defense lines would hold. Earth's soldiers, though emboldened by the success of the railguns, knew they were up against an enemy with far superior firepower. The fight had turned into a deadly game of survival, each side testing the other's resolve and capabilities. But humanity had a secret weapon that even the aliens didn't expect: adaptability. As the alien ships approached their final targets, humanity's engineers revealed their next phase, an upgraded version of the railgun. This new system was mobile, capable of being deployed anywhere on Earth and providing rapid, precise counterattacks. Using advanced AI to track alien movements, the railguns were now capable of firing on multiple targets simultaneously. A new round of fire tore through the alien ships with incredible speed and power, piercing their shields once again. The aliens reeled. Their forces were now spread thin, caught between their retreating fleet and humanity's surprising resilience. Despite the technological gap, despite the alien superiority, the humans were holding their ground. And the aliens, once confident in their ability to conquer Earth without resistance, began to question their ability to achieve a swift victory. This was no longer a one-sided war. The battlefield had become a test of who would bend first, humanity or the alien invaders. And as the dust settled from the latest barrage, it was clear the fight was far from over. The news of the ongoing battle between Earth and the alien fleet spread like wildfire across the globe. What had started as a few isolated reports of strange lights in the sky had quickly transformed into the greatest conflict in human history. People from all walks of life, scientists, soldiers, civilians, watched as their world was thrown into a fight for survival. But despite the mounting chaos, there was a rising sense of unity. The humans weren't just defending their cities or their countries, they were defending their very existence. And in this fight, they had one secret weapon: their unwavering will to survive. As the alien ships continued to wreak havoc in Earth's atmosphere, humanity's military leaders moved quickly to coordinate a global defense effort. The railgun systems, still mostly concentrated in isolated military bases, were quickly expanded. The international cooperation that had been unimaginable just a few years before now became a necessity. Earth's governments put aside their differences, pooling resources to manufacture new railgun systems and to bolster their defenses. In hidden laboratories and makeshift workshops, scientists and engineers raced to improve the railguns. The technology was still in its infancy, and while the early strikes had been devastating, humanity knew the aliens would adapt. They had to be ready for the next phase. In response to the alien fleet's new tactics, engineers developed a mobile railgun platform, one that could be deployed anywhere on Earth within hours. The railguns were now not just a stationary weapon, but a dynamic, rapidly deployable force capable of striking at multiple targets simultaneously. At the same time, humanity's intelligence networks worked tirelessly to uncover any vulnerabilities in the alien fleet. Earth's spies, hackers, and analysts, some working from makeshift operations, others in the shadows, scrambled to decrypt alien communications and break through their advanced encryption. They found small cracks in the aliens' data transmission systems, small flaws in their communications network that could be exploited. Every scrap of information was vital, and every breakthrough brought humanity closer to understanding its enemy. The aliens, meanwhile, were not without their own resources. Their initial shock had passed, and they were regrouping. The fleet had sustained significant damage, but their commanders were determined to win. The retreat had been temporary, a necessary repositioning to reassess their strategies. The aliens knew the humans would continue to develop new tactics, and they were ready to meet them with overwhelming force. Their technological superiority was still vast, but they were beginning to understand the depth of the human ingenuity they faced. The railguns were no longer an anomaly. They were the heart of humanity's defense, and the aliens knew they had to find a way to neutralize them. The alien fleet's commanders issued new orders, focused on disrupting Earth's global coordination. They launched targeted strikes on key railgun systems, sending waves of drones and missiles to destroy humanity's most advanced defenses. But every time they struck, humanity adapted. New railguns sprang up from hidden locations, and the humans responded with quick, efficient counterattacks. The alien weapons were powerful, but the humans had learned to think outside the box. They were improvising, adapting, and overcoming every obstacle thrown their way. In the midst of the chaos, a strange thing began to happen. Earth's people started to believe they could win. The victory of the first few railgun strikes had been nothing short of miraculous. But as time went on, humanity began to learn from their mistakes, improving and refining their weapons, strategies, and tactics. The human race was no longer just reacting to the alien threat. They were taking the fight to the invaders. The world's leaders, once uncertain about the fate of Earth, now saw a glimmer of hope. It was small, but it was there. Humanity was no longer the weak, defenseless species the aliens had thought them to be. The people of Earth had awakened, and their resolve was as sharp as the projectiles fired from the railguns. The aliens had underestimated humanity's potential for adaptation and survival, and now they would come to understand the true strength of the human spirit. The fight was far from over, but one thing was clear: Earth would not go down without a fight. The aliens might have the technology, but humanity had something far more dangerous: the will to fight, to survive, and to win. And that was a force the aliens were only beginning to understand. The alien fleet hovered at the edges of Earth's atmosphere, retreating into the vastness of space to regroup and reevaluate their strategy. Their commanders sat in silence, staring at the screens that displayed a mix of battle damage reports, data analytics, and Earth's increasingly sophisticated defense maneuvers. Despite their technological superiority, they had been outpaced by a species they had long considered insignificant: humans. The railguns had stunned them, a weapon unlike anything they had ever encountered. And they needed answers. Back on Earth, the human military and intelligence agencies worked around the clock, piecing together the mysteries of the alien fleet's technology. The war was no longer just about holding back an invasion. It was a race to understand their enemy as deeply as possible. However, amidst the chaotic response to the alien threat, one thing had become abundantly clear: humans had an edge they hadn't realized they possessed. Their railguns were the focal point of this revelation, and the more the aliens tried to understand them, the more they found themselves perplexed. For weeks, alien spies, hackers, and scientists attempted to decipher the intricacies of the weapon. Their scans revealed nothing extraordinary. The projectiles launched by the railguns were simple in structure, metal, accelerated by electromagnetic forces, but they were impossible to ignore. The sheer velocity and precision were far beyond anything humanity should have been capable of producing. The aliens' initial arrogance had clouded their judgment, but now, as their ships languished in space nursing their wounds, they began to ask themselves, how could a species so young, so primitive, have created something so devastating? Inside their command center, the aliens pieced together their findings. A scientist from the Alien Research Division stared at the data from Earth's railguns, shaking his head in disbelief. "This is impossible," he muttered. He had analyzed everything: the materials, the design, the physics, but nothing made sense. There were no records of a species on Earth that could produce such a weapon. How had they figured out how to manipulate electromagnetic fields with such precision? How had they managed to generate the immense energy required to fire a projectile with such force? He turned to his superior officer, a stern-faced commander who had seen countless worlds fall under their fleet's might. "Sir, the railguns, they aren't just weapons. he said quietly. "They're a symbol of something deeper, human ingenuity. We've been too focused on their technology. We've ignored the fact that they might have built these systems not through some alien gift, but through years of learning, trial and error, and a willingness to push past their limitations. This is their strength, their potential." The commander absorbed the scientist's words in silence. He understood now. The humans had created the railguns not because of some advanced foreign knowledge. They had created them because they had no choice. They were survivors, and their ability to learn and adapt was their greatest weapon. The aliens had underestimated this trait, dismissing Earth as a backwater planet. But what they hadn't realized was that the human spirit of invention and perseverance was far more dangerous than any laser cannon or energy shield. Back on Earth, humanity was beginning to understand the full scale of the situation. The railguns, initially a surprise weapon, were now central to Earth's defense. Engineers and military strategists worked together to optimize their performance and increase the number of operational systems. But they also realized the most important lesson of all. The railguns were not an anomaly of technology. They were the product of human resilience. As humanity turned its attention toward the future, Earth's leaders began to recognize that the fight wasn't just about defeating the alien fleet. It was about proving to the universe that humanity could survive in the face of extinction. The alien invasion, in all its brutality, had awakened something deep within the human psyche. And the more the aliens uncovered about humanity's weapons, the more they realized that they had underestimated a species capable of extraordinary things when pushed to the brink. The aliens' confidence, once unshakable, had started to crack. What they had dismissed as a primitive, unworthy species had revealed a shocking truth. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They were the ones to fear. The true potential of the railguns, it seemed, was not just in their power, but in what they represented, the relentless, unyielding drive of a species that would never give up, no matter the odds. And that, the aliens now understood, was a force far greater than technology alone. The alien fleet, now aware of the true power of Earth's defenses, began to show signs of uncertainty. Their attempts to launch coordinated strikes on humanity's railgun sites were being thwarted at every turn. The humans had not only adapted their technology, but had also learned to anticipate the aliens' every move. Each new attempt to destroy a railgun array was met with an even stronger countermeasure. The aliens, once the dominant force in the galaxy, now found themselves struggling to gain ground against a species they had once dismissed. In response to this new reality, the alien commanders convened in their flagship, a massive vessel that had survived the initial barrage of railgun fire. Despite the significant losses, they had not yet lost hope. They had fought wars for centuries, had conquered countless planets with ease, but Earth had proven to be something entirely different. The human race's resolve, ingenuity, and resourcefulness had thrown their invasion plans into disarray. And now, the aliens were faced with a new challenge: how to adapt quickly enough to reclaim their advantage. We can no longer underestimate them. The fleet's supreme commander, a towering figure with a deep, gravelly voice, stated as he looked over the latest reports. His tone was heavy with the weight of a war that was not going as expected. Their railguns are not an isolated threat. It is the humans themselves. How they learn, how they adapt, that is our true enemy. The tactical officers around him nodded in agreement. The time for simple bombardment was over. The alien fleet would need to engage with more than just brute force. They would need to find a way to break humanity's spirit and cripple their technological advancements. The problem was, no matter how much damage the aliens inflicted, the humans seemed to rise stronger in response. On Earth, military leaders were feeling the pressure, but had found new resolve in the face of the alien onslaught. While the railguns had proven effective, the humans knew they needed more than just powerful weapons to win this war. They needed to outthink the enemy, to keep evolving and innovating faster than the aliens could adapt. The key to victory was not just surviving, but staying one step ahead. In underground command centers across the planet, generals, engineers, and strategists gathered to devise their next move. Intelligence reports were flooded with information, some of which had come from daring infiltrations into alien communication channels. A small group of elite human hackers had succeeded in breaching the alien encryption protocols, stealing vital data on the alien fleet's tactics and technology. The data confirmed what the humans had suspected. The aliens' greatest strength lay in their ability to overwhelm with numbers and sheer force. But what they lacked was the flexibility that humans possessed, the ability to improvise in the heat of battle, to take risks that others wouldn't dare. Humanity's engineers were hard at work, combining the railgun technology with new ideas for mobile platforms, using the stolen alien data to design better countermeasures. They were also working to develop a new type of shield technology, one that could withstand the alien energy weapons long enough for the railguns to land a decisive blow. It was a time of frantic creativity. The war had become a battle of wits as much as firepower, with each side racing to outdo the other. The aliens, once so sure of their inevitable victory, were now being forced to rethink everything they knew about warfare. They had been the hunters, but now they were the hunted. In a secret war room in a former military base in the Himalayas, the final plan was set in motion. The railguns, now fully operational in multiple locations around the globe, would serve as the spearhead of the attack. But Earth's military leaders had devised a more strategic offensive, a multi-pronged assault designed to confuse the aliens, to fracture their lines, and ultimately to force them into a position where the humans could strike with overwhelming force. The first step was to fake a retreat. In the coming days, Earth's forces would simulate a loss, luring the aliens into a false sense of victory. The alien commanders would believe that the humans had exhausted their resources and were on the verge of collapse. It was a dangerous gamble, but it was the best chance they had. As Earth's forces prepared to play their part in this high-stakes deception, humanity's military leaders realized that the battle had shifted. It was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a fight for dominance. And for the first time, the human race believed that they had the upper hand. The aliens had underestimated them. And now, they were about to learn that underestimating humanity was their greatest mistake. The trap had been set, and humanity was about to deliver the most dangerous move of the war. The alien fleet, emboldened by Earth's apparent retreat, had taken the bait. Their reconnaissance suggested that humanity's forces were dwindling, and the railguns, the weapon that had struck so fearfully, seemed to be faltering. They were wrong. What they hadn't realized was that humanity's retreat was a calculated move, designed to lure the invaders into a position where their own overconfidence would lead to their downfall. Earth's military leaders knew that this was the most critical phase of the war. They couldn't afford another misstep. Across the globe, the railgun platforms remained hidden in plain sight, carefully shielded from alien detection. A massive network of underground bunkers, disguised facilities, and secret bases had been constructed in the months following the initial alien assault. They were scattered across mountains, oceans, and vast deserts, places where the aliens had never thought to search. The humans had used their time wisely, turning every corner of the Earth into a battleground that would give them the advantage. The moment the alien fleet moved in to strike at what they believed was Earth's last line of defense, the humans launched their counterattack. The first volley from the railguns hit the aliens with the precision and speed they had come to dread. But this time, it wasn't just a simple attack. The humans had upgraded their systems, integrating new targeting algorithms designed to lock onto the weak points in the alien ship's armor. Each shot was fired with the calculated intent to cripple, not just destroy. The railguns fired in rapid succession, their electromagnetic pulses carrying with them the knowledge that the aliens would soon realize their mistake. The alien shields were fast, but not fast enough. The human engineers had modified the railguns to fire with a delayed release, letting the alien shields dissipate before unleashing another round of fire. The result was devastating. The alien ships that had once seemed invulnerable were now vulnerable to a force they couldn't understand. Large warships splintered under the pressure, their shields failing one after another, and their defensive fleets scattered as humanity's relentless assault tore through them. But it wasn't just the railguns that were the key to victory. It was humanity's unparalleled coordination. While the aliens were focused on the railguns, Earth's military executed a complex, multi-layered offensive. Hidden fighter jets armed with anti-ship missiles launched from secret bases, and covert operatives, having infiltrated the alien communications network, created chaos by scrambling alien targeting systems. Within hours, the once formidable fleet was disintegrating, scattered in disarray as human forces seized the momentum. As the battle unfolded, one by one, the alien command ships began to fall. The remaining alien forces, their numbers dwindling and their morale shattered, struggled to regroup. What had been a coordinated invasion now felt like a desperate escape. The last surviving commanders called for a retreat, but they were too late. Humanity had anticipated their every move and positioned its forces in ways the aliens could not predict. In the final moments of the battle, as the last alien warship attempted to flee, a barrage of railgun fire collided with its hull, tearing through its defenses and sending it into an irreversible spiral toward Earth's surface. The invaders had lost. On the ground, humanity erupted into jubilation, their victory hard-earned but undeniable. Earth's military forces, though battered and scarred, had fought with unrelenting tenacity. In the aftermath, the world began the long process of healing, rebuilding from the devastation left in the wake of the invasion. The war was over, but the world had been forever changed. The alien fleet, once confident in their superiority, had been defeated by a species they had underestimated. It was not just the railguns that had won the war. It was humanity's resilience, adaptability, and unity. They had proven to the universe that they were not a species to be conquered. Earth had survived, and in doing so, had sent a message. When humanity is backed into a corner, there is nothing more dangerous than a species determined to protect its home. As the final remnants of the alien invasion retreated into the cosmos, humanity stood tall, knowing they had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The Earth was not just a speck in the universe anymore. It was a world that had fought for its place, and the galaxy would never forget the name of the species that refused to surrender.